Well, it's 5:01 and it is Tuesday, April the 22nd, 2025. I will call to order this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Saugeen Shores. And the land acknowledgement this evening will be read by Councillor Grace.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
At this point on the agenda, I'd ask if anyone has a pecuniary interest about any of the agenda items, you can declare now or at any point during the meeting that you have to. Seeing none. I don't believe we have any additions, deletions, or amendments. Seeing none. 5.1 on the agenda is there's a recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment approve the minutes of March the 17th, 2025 as presented. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Hope, Member Wallace, seconded by Member Schmidt. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Any corrections or changes? Go ahead.
Chair, I'd like to make a correction that I had regrets for that meeting on March 17th. If you could strike my name off the.
Well, okay, then I don't believe we should let you move the motion. I thought you were doing that when you had your hand up. Okay, so is it okay if we just go back? Okay, it will be moved by Councillor Grace and seconded by Member Schmidt. And the comment is noted. Is there anything else? I'll just say that I thought it was Councillor Grace that wasn't here. That's why I didn't have them open right here in front of me. But so all in favor? Those minutes are carried. We have two public hearings on the agenda tonight. I'd like to welcome folks in the chambers. I can see a few people back there. We have a number of staff people here from both the county and the town of Saugeen Shores as well. There may very well be people online too. But next on the agenda is a public hearing for the file number A-2025-001, and the name on the file is Myers. This is a public hearing under the Planning Act. If anyone from the public is interested in this application or wishes to receive a notice of the decision, please send an email to bcplpe@brucecounty.on.ca. First, we will receive a report from the county planner, Jake Bosfield Bastido. Then we will hear from the public who are here in person or virtual, or who have submitted correspondence to the county via email. Then committee members will have an opportunity to ask clarifying questions, and I will ask them to reserve their comments on the application until the public hearing is closed. Members of the public are advised that the right to appeal the decision on this application is limited to specified persons and public bodies as defined in the Planning Act, or to the owner or applicant of the land subject to the amendment who have provided oral or written comments to the committee on the application before the decision is made. I now declare the public hearing open and ask the planner on the file to present the application. And I think that's you, Jake, isn't it? Go ahead, the floor is yours.
It is, thank you, Chair. So the proposal before the committee tonight is a minor variance requested to facilitate a proposed severance of two building lots at 395 High Street. The two variances requested are first to reduce the rear yard setback on the retained parcel from 7.5 meters to 4.9 meters. And second, to reduce the minimum driveway width on Lot B from 3 meters to 1.4 meters. So the committee's to consider 4 tests of a minor variance as laid out in the Planning Act when weighing the decision. I won't go through the entirety of the analysis that's in the report, instead focus on some key points for each of the 2 variances. So first, regarding the driveway width on Lot B, the proposal is for a shared 6-meter wide driveway, which would be shared with the adjacent Lot C. But because that shared driveway would not perfectly straddle the lot line, Lot B does not have the minimum 3 meters as laid out in the zoning bylaw. So given that an associated easement is also being proposed, the driveway is expected to function as one and maintain the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw as one large 6-meter wide driveway. It's considered appropriate for the development of the land, given that requiring the minimum would actually result in excessive hardscaping of the lot. Moving now to the reduced rear yard setback. One important consideration is that the proposed lot exceeds the minimum where 450 square meters are required, 645 square meters is proposed. So the dwelling could in principle be demolished, reconstructed to meet those minimums. So what the variance enables is to maintain that existing dwelling. When considering the intent of the zoning bylaw, rear yards are provided to maintain sufficient open amenity space and a reasonable expectation of privacy. The oversized front yard on the property and existing landscaped open space are anticipated to maintain ample amenity space. And that remaining 4.9 meters to the rear yard is anticipated to provide reasonable privacy, in particular when noting that no existing residents are subjected to that reduction, but rather it's between the existing dwelling and proposed new dwelling on Lot C. When considering whether an application is minor, the 4th test, it's evaluated in terms of the impact to the surrounding neighborhood. So public concerns have been provided on the themes of traffic, noise, and congestion, architectural concerns, the size of the units, and the reduced rear yard setback, inadequate parking space, and drainage and flooding. I'd note that of these, the rear yard setback pertains to the minor variance being considered by the committee this evening, and the remainder pertain to the intensification that would be proposed through the creation of 2 new building lots. That would be enabled by the severance and a proposed easement, which would be considered in a future report. So to focus on the rear yard setback, it's been identified to highlight the unsuitability of the retained lot. But as noted above, the proposed severances do meet and exceed the minimum lot size, and the requested reduction in rear yard setback allows for the maintenance of the existing dwelling. So based on that, the subject application satisfies the 4 tests set out in the Planning Act. I do just want to reiterate a note of process for the public and committee. As I had noted, the severance would be forthcoming. It's been practiced to consider first minor variances or zoning bylaws if they're needed to establish land use permissions, followed by land division. I recognize that the main point of concern would be that land division, but I want to stress that those public comments have been noted and would be examined further in the severance report forthcoming, which would go to Bruce County for decision. One final note to clarify, I realized an error on behalf of the county today. We always make a point of redacting emails and phone numbers on public comments, and we had inadvertently redacted 3 of the names of the public commenters. So I just wanted to read into the record those names which have now been added to that public comment sheet. So that's Helen and Jason Harnden, Karen Dent, and Melanie Jackson. Those members of the public did not provide addresses. So the names are what we have. So with that, I will conclude my presentation, but I'm happy to take questions when the time comes.
Thank you. Is the applicant or their agent present? I see Mr. Davidson coming up to the microphone. Do you wish to make a submission? So could you just state your full name for the record before making your comments?
Thanks, Jay. Yes, good evening. My name is Ron Davidson. I am a planning consultant and I represent Derek Myers, who's the property owner. I shall be brief.
If I could just ask you, just make sure that you speak right into the microphone, because if there is somebody online listening, and I think there is, sometimes it's a little hard for the audio to go out. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, completely understand. Again, and yes, I can actually hear myself better, so you're right, Madam Chair. My name still is Ron Davidson. I'm a planning consultant and I represent the owner, Derek Myers. I filed the applications for consent and for the minor variance. As Jake indicated, we're not dealing with the severances tonight, but we're dealing with a minor variance that would help facilitate the severance. So what's being proposed is the severance of 2 lots, 2 vacant lots, upon which a fourplex would be erected on both or each. And then on the retained parcel, the existing house would stay. And this is exactly what town council, I believe, has been promoting, because a couple months ago you changed your zoning or council changed the zoning bylaw to allow for a fourplex to be constructed on a residential lot where full municipal services are provided, and that is the case here. And that is the intent of Derek. He wants to build, like I said, fourplexes on the 2 vacant properties, and they will be rental units, which I'm well aware is something that is near and dear to the heart of the town, because we have a problem here with adequacy or enough rental housing units. So, but the variance, though, that's why we're here tonight, is necessary for 2 reasons, as Jake indicated. One, to deal with the rear yard of the existing house. It will be reduced when we create what's known as Lot C, from down to 4.97 meters. So just about 5 meters, which in my mind is still reasonable and allows for the proper function of a rear yard. And I think that was the point Jake was trying to make. There should be no impact on the neighbors from that, because there's going to be a vacant lot in between. I suppose if somebody was to be impacted by a reduced rear yard, it would be Derek, because he's going to be the guy next door that's building the fourplex. But again, there shouldn't be an impact caused by a 4.97 meter rear yard. The other variance is, in my mind, a technicality. As you heard, there's going to be a shared driveway between the lots B and C. Those are the 2 new fourplex lots. The driveway will conform to the zoning bylaw in terms of its width. But because it's shared and only a portion of it is on lot B and a portion is on lot C, individually, they don't meet the requirement for the width of a driveway, and specifically just on lot B. But it's a shared driveway, so it wouldn't make any sense to make the driveway any wider. In fact, it would be, in my mind, a detriment to the development. Why would you want to add more asphalt and have less grass? I don't think anybody would want that. So again, it's really dealing with a technicality. That's it for my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Is anyone else from the public here to speak in support of the application? I do have a name on the list, Mike Harley. Oh, okay, you're in a different, sorry, we'll just give a second here. So is anyone from the public, is anyone else from the public here with questions, concerns, or objections to the application? I believe that's you, Mr. Harley. So if you could again just speak directly into the microphone and state your full name and for the record before making your comments. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Michael Harley, Harley. We live at 389 High Street, which is just next door to this proposed development. As per our submission, we have had a problem with our concerns with the traffic and the flooding that could happen with the development of this property. We're not opposed to the property being developed. This is an oversized lot. And where the proposed lot B is certainly fine with us. It's well over to the side and close to Grenville Street. However, to intensify this lot for population, to go from one single family dwelling to 9 single family dwellings, to us is a little bit beyond what we believe is right for this area. It is, we've had a lot of development in our area right now, including the launch development that's down on Grenville Street, and they've been very respectful of that idea of the neighborhood. This corner is a very small corner. If you look over on the opposite side where launch is, they have widened up the street to allow for traffic and for people to be on the sides of that street. Grenville is not on the south side, just is not widened. And in fact, we've had a lot of congestion there because of the traffic that's being used for the soccer fields, the new retirement development that is happening. The proposed developments along that street, we've already had a 40-acre clearing to the east side of Grenville proposed, as well as from Spence Street all the way down to Peel Street is going to be developed. I believe it was called the old Squirty Mercer properties, I think it was. So we're right in the bullseye of where the development is going to happen. We also have, I believe, Snyder's down the street on High Street has already cleared out about 50 acres of land proposed for that development. So we're expecting to see a lot more traffic, especially on the corner of that intersection of Grenville and High Street. Now, we all know that High Street's very busy. We have the ambulances, the police, and it is a main thoroughfare to go down to the downtown area and out to Owen Sound, because it's where we go to Highway 21. So our traffic concerns are that this area is going to be very congested with the existing and proposed development that's already happening. When I had met Jake, he was over inspecting the property, and he had parked along the side of the road where a lot of cars normally do, and traffic had to stop to allow for one car to get by and for another car to move forward, just because of his car being on the side of the road. And we've seen that many times, because what happens is, as some of you know, the work yard down on Peel Street, where the town has its yard for all the maintenance, uses Grenville Street. It goes up and down that street. That's how they reach to High Street and to go downtown. Now,
Mr. Harley,
yeah,
I was remiss in not saying that there's a 5-minute limit.
Yes.
So I'll just let you know about 2 minutes more. Okay?
Thank you very much. That's great to know. So I realize that this is sort of this application kind of seems to me a little bit like putting the cart before the horse. I know you have this idea that we have to have the driveway severance and the proposed setback to happen, but we're not opposed to a lot B happening and the development therein. But a Lot C would cause further congestion. There doesn't take into consideration the 8 applied spots there for traffic for guests, which we all know. I mean, we have a social life, and having guests, people having pickups. If you drive down the street towards Bruce Power every morning, you'll see there's a third of the traffic is pickups. So what will happen is, and what we believe will happen is, there will be a lot of congestion caused by people parking on that street right now. It already happens right now. Could happen in the future very easily, especially with the increased traffic. So that is our one concern. The other is for flooding. We've had, as you know, climate change. We've had a lot of heavy intensive rains. We have had some problems already with flooding in the area on that street. I could pass these around to you. What has happened is the present developer actually blocked off the ditch, the drainage ditch, causing flooding on the street. And the town had to be called to come in with a front end loader to dig out the ditch again to start the flow again of water. Not what I would consider the best idea, but that also highlights the concern that we do have a lot of water in the area. As you know, if you check some of your applications, you can't have
If you could
Yeah.
wrap up.
yeah.
Thank
So
you.
what we're saying is right now is due to traffic, due to the present water conditions and drainage and the width of the street, we do not feel that this would, that a Lot C or the easement for a Lot C and the driveway would be appropriate for this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harley.
Thank you for your time.
Are there any written submissions that were not already discussed in the planning report presentation or oral submissions that we've heard?
Chair Huber, there are not.
Do any committee members have clarifying questions for the planner or the applicant, or based on Mr. Harley said before we close the public hearing? Councillor Grace first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions. One, just the last item that Mr. Harley mentioned in his comments about flooding. So in the report, it talked about the fact that the floodplain was reconfigured to the satisfaction of the SVCA to allow them to change the previous EP zoning to I guess, acceptable residential zoning. When I drove past there, I noticed it looked like quite an elevated section that had been built up, which was the new grading on Lot B and sort of the east part of Lot C. So is, I guess, the town satisfied that that elevated level will, that there's enough that can be required in terms of engineering to prevent any flooding onto neighboring properties?
Through you, Chair Huber. So what the Conservation Authority has done is they have looked at their regional storm. And what will happen later in the process at the building permit stage is that there will be a lot grading and drainage plan that addresses local drainage. So looking at the smaller storm events and what the local drainage is doing on the site. So the filling that's happened on the lot to facilitate the creation of the lots is ahead of that localized drainage plan that has not been completed as of yet.
Could I just, for the benefit of the public that's here, could you just say your name too and your position with the town?
Sorry, my apologies. My name is Candace Ham and I am the Development Services Officer for the town.
Okay, another question that I have about this applies to the requested variance for the 4.97 meter rear yard setback. And in the report, the comments from the town talk about a proposed fence is anticipated. And I'm wondering if we can go a step farther and make that a condition of if it is approved. Is that something that could be added to the list of conditions?
There we go. Thanks. So yes, in short, the committee can suggest conditions and impose those before signing the decision sheet. I had sent you draft wording that I just grabbed from other decisions. I'll just read that out actually, so for the benefit of the rest of the committee for their discussion. So this could be tweaked, but along the lines of 1.8 meter high privacy fence or hedge consisting of nursery stock conifers planted at 0.6 meter intervals must extend the length of the rear lot line of Lot A and be located entirely within the subject property. So I would suggest procedurally, if the committee would want to come back to that at discussion, through the chair, you may want to consult with the planner whether they're the applicant's planner, whether they're amenable to that at this point.
Just for the benefit of the people in the audience, the microphone system, they have to turn off for another one to speak. I'm the only one who can use mine all the time. You just very specifically said the rear of Lot A though. Does that answer your question, Councillor Grace?
I do have a follow-up if
Sure.
I may. So this I know is trickier and I don't know if it's possible, but going past the property and also hearing the submission from Mr. Harley, although it's not tied to a specific request for a variance, minor variance, is it possible for us to put as a condition or strongly request buffering along the west side of lots C and A and also along the south of what would be lot C, I guess, out of consideration for the neighbors.
Candace?
Through you, Chair Huber, the development is less than 10 units, and so it will not be subject to site plan control. And so really there really aren't any provisions in the bylaw that would require the type of buffering that is typically handled at site plan control, but this is less than 10 units, so it will not be subject to that.
So I realize, and maybe the public also doesn't realize that provincial law says that if you have a development that involves 10 or less, is it 10 or less or 10 or less dwelling units, that we're not allowed to make site plan control demands. Is there some method for us to negotiate this with the developer outside of that provincial law?
Through you, Chair Huber, I think that we should, that the committee's responsibility is to review the application that is before them, and that we can't get into very specific site planning details, specifically things that go over and above the requirements of the bylaw.
One more question, if I might, and this refers to parking. So I see on the plan that there are, I believe, 8 spots, theoretically one for each of the dwelling units. In reality, many people who own 2 cars or have 2 vehicles. So, and we have a law which prohibits parking on the street in the winter. Is there some we just hoping that we won't have overflow parking? Is that, I know the zoning bylaw only requires a certain amount, but the reality is that we'll end up having probably more than 8 vehicles attached to this. Thanks.
Is there a question in there?
The question, I guess, would be, has our staff discussed this reality, and is there anything we can do to assist any future residents or residents in the area now?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Chair Huber, Council has recently passed the amendment to the bylaw that specifies the required number of parking spaces for residential developments in the R1 when we have multiple units. The answer is 1 parking space is required per unit. And the developer has provided that, so it's meeting the provisions of the zoning bylaw.
Member Schmidt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarification question first. We're just here to look at my understanding is we're here just to look at the variance in the setback. We're not here to look at whether this fits in the character of the neighborhood, or is that part of another meeting with the severance, or I just want to have clarification on that?
Well, I was going to ask something similar, so perhaps I'll add on to that and ask Jake to just clarify, because a number of things were mentioned. So, you know, we're being asked to do something ahead of the severance and ahead of the easement. So could you just be very specific about what we're to make a decision about?
Of course. So the decision before the committee is constrained to the reduction of the rear yard setback on Lot A and the reduction in the minimum driveway width for that portion of the shared driveway overlapping onto Lot B.
There we go. So looking at the setback on Lot A, I just want to make sure I got this correct here. It looks like the west side is setback of 4.886, I believe. And on the east side is 4.97. Is that correct? I guess in the report, it looked like it was 4.9, but it's a little bit varying.
Yeah, 4.97 on the, sorry, just to clarify, you're looking at Lot A?
Yes, correct, Lot A.
Thanks. So I would say south side or the rear yard away from High Street is 4.97. And the front yard is 14.89.
Just to follow up on that one, I noticed on Lot C, the building envelope is smaller than Lot B, and I guess it's probably a question for the developer. And it looks to me, if we were to get the setback a little bit more in keeping with what the zoning bylaw is, it would impact on the size of the building envelope for Lot C. Is that, I guess the question, is that doable or reasonable to request that, to get the setback more in line with what it should be?
Just to clarify, the Lot C is meeting the zoning bylaw. So there's no requested variances for either of the new lots.
I guess what I'm looking at is to get the setback for Lot A, you would need to change the boundary of the severance, correct? Which would affect the building of Lot C.
That's right. That would that would constrain Lot C. Would you like to put the question to the planner to see if that would be reasonable?
Yes, sorry, that was my intent.
Am I still on, Jay? I think so. I'm still on? I am so. Okay, so yeah, fair question. And I think just to answer your first question, Jake, I think behind the building on Lot A, at one point, the rear yard is 4.97 meters, but at another point, it's 4.86 meters. I think that's what your question was. So yeah, I agree with that. Actually, a previous version of this drawing that never got this far during original pre-consultation with county and town staff had Lot A even a little bit smaller in order to make Lot C bigger. So that meant this, and that was at the expense of the rear yard. And it was suggested that if Lot A became deeper, exactly as shown here, that would be, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I will, that would be acceptable. So I guess from my end of it, the question is there a problem with a 4.886 meter rear yard? And I would say there isn't. Of course, I'm representing the applicant, but to make it deeper would be at the expense of Lot C. And I think that I wouldn't want to see that trade-off. I think this is the best approach here, in my opinion.
Sorry, a follow-up on this. So Lot A, is it currently rented or is it owned? Well, sorry, sorry, clarify the question. Is there a rental in there or is the owner residing?
That goes beyond the scope of
Okay.
our committee, actually, to determine actual what's going on. And it's a residential unit. It could be rented, it could be owned, or it could have the owner living in it. It's a residential unit. Is there anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt?
Yep, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I guess Scott, I guess what I'd like to ask about the transportation study, is that or will it be a requirement of this application transportation study?
Who are you directing the question to, Jake?
Sure.
Can I direct that to town staff to speak to the master plan?
Thanks, through you, Chair Huber. When I'm looking back on the pre-consultation notes that took place, the town did request a traffic brief be done. So I suppose I'll direct that back to you, Jake, to see what the status is of that traffic brief.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you. I will make sure that is included in the forthcoming.
If I may, Chair Huber, perhaps that could be a condition of the variance, that if that question hasn't been answered and there are concerns from the public, that I believe may be a reasonable condition of the variance, is that a traffic impact brief be provided.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm Jake
You-
Posner with the town. I guess, are you requesting that in the variance, in which case the committee should be adding it, or is it with the severance?
Thank you. That's a great suggestion, Jay. If it can be handled at the consent process as a condition of the consent, then I think that would be reasonable.
Thank you for that. And I just, as long as it's covered somewhere, it was a question I had, and the members of the public have raised that question. Grenville Street, just talk about that a little bit here in terms of concerns from the public again. The width and one car park in there, and it's up to bypass that car. I guess this is through Deputy Mayor to Jay, perhaps. Is Grenville Street, Jay, adequate in terms of our own bylaws, width of roads? Are we meeting our own standards by allowing traffic to come in and out of lots of that, what, 20?
if I could just encourage, we have indicated some information about a traffic brief. So
That'll be part of it.
it is 20 to 6. Just want to remind the committee of the time. But go ahead, Jay.
No, I'll be brief, and I'm glad for the opportunity to clarify, as certainly that's part of the reason why we, the town, have asked for the brief to be prepared, have a competent individual examine the road conditions and to see if the number of units that it would be feeding under Grenville, with forever focusing on the request for this committee is looking at different matters right now, so I turn it back to the chair.
Fair enough. So I'm clear, that's part, it'll be part of the severance application, correct? Okay. My concern, and Councilor Grace has raised this, it was about the, the concerns about the, building on a floodplain, but just so I can hear
Do
it
you have-
again.
Do you have a question?
I do.
Okay, good.
I do have a question. Just so I can hear it again, the SPCA are okay with this minor variance application in terms of building on a floodplain that the SPCA is satisfied?
That's right. They have issued comments in support of the severance.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to be clear. And so I'm clear again, the 6-meter shared driveway, which I'll comment later, my thoughts on that, but close to 20 feet, that's correct, right? It's a 6-meter, 20 foot wide shared driveway. Is that correct? That's it for now. Thank you.
Mr. Davidson, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, just quickly here. First of all, if I was aware of a traffic brief being required, my apologies. I believe that's the first time I've heard of that. And yeah, that would be a condition of consent. I would say it wouldn't be appropriate for here, but of course, the town has the right to make that request to the county. Just very quickly here, though, I hear the band playing. In terms of a traffic brief, I just want to, hopefully there's some direction in terms of exactly what we're looking for. If we're looking for a traffic count, I'll tell you now, it'll be based on 8 vehicles. It'll be 1 vehicle every 7.5 minutes. But if you're looking at something else, maybe if there's some clarification as to what that would look like, that would be appreciated.
If it's part of the consent application, it would come from a different direction than from our committee. Jay, did you wish to say something? Oh, okay. Are there any other questions from members of the committee? Well, I will now declare the public hearing to be closed, and the committee will now discuss the application. I just want to remind you that the application is very specific to setback. The variance is specific to setbacks associated with Lot A. Is that correct? Yes. So if you could, and I understand that there's interest in some other aspects, but if your comments could be specific to what we have before us, if at all possible. Jay, did you want to say something?
Just to confirm, the rear yard setback on Lot A, and then the minimum driveway width would be on the proposed Lot C. Yeah.
Thank you. So we're open to some comments now. Would any member wish to speak? Member Wallace?
I just want to confirm that the variance is not 4.9, but we're going to have a variance of 4.8 on the corner of that lot. So just to make sure the numbers are right, that we do get what we're voting on. The other comment I'd like to make, just wondering if was ever desired to have just 2 severances for Lot A and Lot B, and why do we have to have like 3? Because then we wouldn't need the variance for the driveway allowance.
Well, I think someone who owns property is free to make an application, and I believe this the size that's there would enable two lots. The province, the comment that was made about the density issues, council had to follow provincial direction on that. So we didn't decide to do that. We were told that has a right for residential units where possible on what used to be an R1 or on any residential lot. But certainly it affected our R1. But Jake, do you have a comment as to, what would be the direction that would have led to this sort of configuration in terms of a division of land? Potential division of land.
If I may, I think that would be best directed towards the planner for the applicant. We haven't provided direction on how to subdivide the land.
Well, we've closed the public meeting, so.
Oh, okay.
Technically, it's a valid question, Member Wallace, but it's certainly, I'm not too sure exactly how to address it. Do I have any advice from my partners up here?
No, not necessarily. I mean, the time for questions was when the public meeting was open to communicate with the developer. So unfortunately, that time has passed.
Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to recommend or propose that the committee recommend a condition related to the fence or buffering hedge or something that Jake provided with me for an example today. So his example is that a 1.8 meter high privacy fence or hedge consisting of nursery stock conifers planted at 0.6 meter intervals must extend the length of the lot line, and that would be separating Lot A and Lot C, which is where the rear yard setback request is, and be located entirely within the subject property. So I know that that area is, that lot line is within the whole developer's property, but at some point, this is a private residence in a single dwelling in Lot A. And I think that since the report even mentioned that that a fence would be or could be anticipated, I would like to see us do what we can within the limits of our powers to assist with that kind of buffering.
I believe that our committee secretary has some wording. Perhaps Dana, could you just read that at this point?
Sure. The wording that I have is that a 1.8 meter high privacy fence or hedge consisting of nursery stock planted at 0.6 meter intervals must extend the length of the rear lot line for Lot A on Schedule A and be located entirely within the subject property.
Thank you.
I believe we have a comment from Bruce County Planning.
Thank you, through you, Chair. If you could add potentially to the satisfaction of town staff or to the satisfaction of the municipality.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Okay, then we do have a recommendation the recommendation is that the application for minor variance for a minor variance from comprehensive zoning bylaw 75 -2006 is hereby granted subject to the following conditions. Number one, that any further development on the property, including any redevelopment or alterations to the existing detached dwelling that will change the building height or footprint, conforms to the provisions of the zoning bylaw. Number two, that the decision applies only to the proposed development as indicated on Schedule A attached to and forming part of this decision. And number three, which is that a 1.8 meter high privacy fence or hedge consisting of nursery stock conifers planted at 0.6 meter intervals must extend the length of the rear lot line for Lot A on Schedule A and be located entirely within the subject property to the satisfaction of the town of Saugeen Shores staff. And again, the decision sheet that, or the information that we had in our planning is very specific about the variance. So it's got the distances and that sort of thing. But can I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Grace, seconded by Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt. Are there any other?
No, I just wanted, I didn't get a chance to comment earlier. I just want to comment on the recommendation. I'll be supporting this. I think it's just, this is one of the things, our bylaw was just changed. We just changed our bylaw to allow for fourplexes as per provincial legislation. And so we had a lengthy discussion on it at council level when we did approve that. And I did support that at that time as well. I think the shared driveway, the 6 meter, is more grass, less asphalt. I think Mr. Davidson mentioned that, and I think that's a valid point. So I think when you talk about meeting the 4 tests, and we'll read them, you know what they are. I think this application meets those 4 tests. So I'll be supporting the application.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair Huber, I'm just going to follow up on the comment that was made regarding the rear yard setback to get clarification. Is the 4.97 meters the correct dimension, or is this the minimum rear yard is 4.86? So that we ensure that the decision sheet is correct. Okay, our zoning coordinator is indicating that she has revised that on the decision sheet to the correct 4.86.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. So the minor variance is granted, and the reasons for this is that the variance maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan. The variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The variance requested is desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings, and the variance is minor in nature. We do have another public hearing. We are encouraged very strongly to complete our meetings by 6 o'clock, but I would just ask us to keep that in mind. However, I'm definitely a proponent of making sure we do things properly. So next on the agenda is a public hearing for the file number A-2025-009. The name on the file is Hennessy. This is a public hearing under the Planning Act. If anyone from the public is interested in this application or wishes to receive a notice of the decision, please send an email to bcplpe@brucecounty.on.ca. First, we will receive a report from the county planner, Karina Smith. Then we'll hear from the public who are here and present virtually or have submitted. Then the committees will have an opportunity to ask clarifying questions. And members of the public are advised that the right to appeal the decision on this application is limited to specified persons and public bodies as defined in the Planning Act, or the owner or applicant of the land subject to the amendment who have provided oral or written comments to the committee on the application before the decision is made. I now declare the public meeting, or the public hearing, open, and ask the planner on the file to present the application. Karina?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So I am presenting this evening on a minor variance application at 560 Waterloo Street in Port Elgin. Relief is required from the front, side, and rear yard setbacks of the zoning bylaw to allow for a new building to replace the existing single detached dwelling with a new semi-detached building, and that would be in the same general location as the existing dwelling, while removing the historical encroachment that the existing building has within the Johnson Street right-of-way. Relief is also required for the setback between the new driveway and the west side of the building. And relief is also required to allow for a portion of the new building to be within the site visibility triangle. So just a bit of context for the committee as it relates to this application. So it was subject to a previous zoning bylaw amendment application and a consent application. At that time, zoning relief was required as a result of that lot being severed in two and needed to recognize the existing location of the historical home on the property. That zoning bylaw special provisions are specific to that existing structure, and all new additions or new buildings were to comply with the zoning bylaw. So the applicant did make a submission to the town for a replacement dwelling with the intent of maintaining the existing building footprint and then adding on to that. The addition did meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw, but it was noted at the time of the town's review that one of the setbacks, specifically the rear yard setback of the existing home, did not match that of what was included in the zoning bylaw, and so relief was required. Through that process, it was also flagged that the town has a policy as it relates to encroachments. The existing home does currently encroach, as noted, within the right-of-way on the north side. And so the town did seek to have that encroachment addressed. And there are a couple of mechanisms to do that. One is to relocate the building to remove that encroachment from the right-of-way. The other would be to enter into an agreement. Through discussions with the applicant, we did reach the conclusion that we would look at and consider shifting of the building. So essentially the building design has remained as originally proposed, but as a result of that building shifting out of the municipal right-of-way, it did trigger relief being required from other setbacks on the property. We have reviewed that proposal against the tests under the Planning Act and have determined that staff can support that. Again, the intent here is to improve the existing situation. So for some of the setbacks, we are improving from what is the current building on the property. The two new variances relate to the setback between a parking area and a lot line. The reason and the request for this variance is to reduce it from 1 meter, which is required in the bylaw, to 0.5 meters, and that is to allow for 2 vehicles to park between the new building and the rear lot line. The other setback is in relation to encroachments, or what is termed encroachments in the zoning bylaw, and those are specifically when you have a footprint of a building, there are certain encroachments through things like eaves or architectural structures, features on the building that can encroach in that municipal setback to the property line. In this case, we're seeking a 0 meter setback to allow for that building to fit on the property fully, including the eaves of that structure. I know we're short on time, so I will maybe end my presentation there, but I'm happy to talk about any sections of my report.
Thank you. And I'll just ask for, since we're a couple of minutes away from 6 o'clock, I'll just ask for a motion to suspend the rules so that we can go beyond 6 p.m. Can I get a mover? Councillor Grace, Member Schmidt. I probably mispronounce that every time. Herb, sorry about that. So all those in favor? Okay, so we'll go. Oh, they're being particular up here, 10 minutes. So we have 10 minutes more. Okay. So it's not as bad as it was at the NII where, we had to move everything around, but 10 minutes. But Karina, so if there's anything else you'd like to add, there's still a bit more time.
Thank you, Chair. I am fine to proceed as is, and I understand Mr. Hennessy, who is the applicant, he's available to date as well.
Thank you. So Mr. Hennessy, would you like to speak? So Mr. Hennessy is the applicant. So again, just state your name and just speak directly into the mic. Thank you.
Evening, I'm Ryan Hennessy. The only thing I'd like to add is the intent of this build will be for additional residential units for rentals, and I own the neighboring properties as well. It's the only two things I'd like to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe there's anybody online. So is anyone else from the public here to speak in support of the application? Or is anyone from the public here with questions, concerns, or objections to the application? So then, do members are there any written submissions that were not already discussed in the planning report, presentation, or oral submissions?
Chair Huber, there are not.
So do any committee members have clarifying questions for the planner, the applicant, or the applicant before we close the public hearing? Herb, Member Schmidt?
So just a clarification, are we only looking at the issue of the minimum yard setback being previously thought to be 6.5 meters, but it's really 6 meters?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. So we are looking at multiple variances. One does relate to that rear yard setback, which was to correct the error from the original zoning bylaw. And then because the building has shifted off of the municipal right-of-way, there is relief needed from front side, exterior side yard, interior side yard, as well as the encroachment into that setback for eaves and other architectural features. And then the other minor variance that I did speak of was with relation to the setback between a parking area and the lot line. The one other item I didn't note previously is that the existing building also does currently sit within or partially within the site visibility triangle, and the new proposed building will as well, but it will be pulled back slightly from that existing location.
It's not working. There it is. Okay. I hate to delay things, but can you briefly explain the visibility triangle? I couldn't quite figure that out in the drawing. It looks like there's a square there.
Yes, thank you for the question. So if you're looking at the site plan that was included in the report, there is what is shown as an angle coming between Johnson Avenue and Waterloo Street, and that's considered the site visibility triangle. So it's measured 10 meters from the point of intersection of those two streets. So it's 10 meters along Waterloo and 10 meters along Johnson Avenue, and then the site visibility triangle covers the corner of the property. The actual traveled portion of the right-of-way is further out. The bylaw refers to the site visibility triangle being drawn from the edge of the right-of-way.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will now declare the public hearing to be closed and the committee can discuss the application. So does anyone have a comment about this application? Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt?
I just want to comment that I'll be supporting this application. I want to commend Bruce County Planning for bringing this forward as quickly as you did. I know you're swamped with work and there's time constraints, and you got it here, and I appreciate the effort that you made to get it here so expediently. So thank you for that. I'll be supporting this application. It was well written, well done.
Any other comments? Well, we do have a recommendation. And again, as the planner said, the variances, there's a few listed on the report. It's kind of goes all the way around the building. So I'm not going to read all of that. It was in the report, but the recommendation is that the application for minor variance from comprehensive zoning bylaw 75-2006 is hereby granted subject to the following conditions. That any future development on the property conforms to the provisions of the zoning bylaw, that the decision applies only to the proposed development as indicated on Schedule A attached and forming part of this decision, and the setback distances are noted on that schedule, and that the proposed development as indicated on Schedule A encroach no further into the site visibility triangle than the existing single detached building, and that the distance be confirmed in meters to the satisfaction of town staff prior to the demolition of the existing building. And finally, number 4, that the applicant amend their building permit drawings to the satisfaction of town staff to shorten the eaves so that they do not extend over any property lines. And the reason for this recommendation is that the application the variance application maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan. The variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The variance requested is desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings, and that the variance is minor in nature. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt, seconded by Member Wallace. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So our next meeting is slated for, this is item 8 on the agenda. The next meeting will be held on Tuesday, May the 20th, 2025. Do we already know that we have applications? I would respectfully ask for consideration of staff, and I guess perhaps something can be circulated. I feel very rushed with this 1 hour limit, and we have applications that I think are deserving of attention, and especially when there's public hearings involved. So I would respectfully ask that something be circulated to assess the potential for the meetings to once again begin at 4:30 if possible. So the next meeting will be held on Tuesday, May the 20th, 2025. At the moment, it's scheduled for 5 o'clock, but I would ask that, again, an assessment sort of, or a little survey go out, because I do feel that we are rushed. Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt?
Yeah, just a quick comment about that. Can we make that a game time decision in terms of, you know, a week in advance, we get our agenda, that the staff announce whether it's 4:30 or 5, and tell you why, and it's obvious.
Mhm.
If there's one singular application on there, it's a wait. You and I and Councillor Grace in particular. I mean, there's no point me traveling, being selfish here. There's no point me traveling back home for a half an hour. So I think, and volunteers too are on the committee. Can we make that a game time decision?
Well, I think perhaps the survey can go out just to make sure that everybody potentially could be available for
4:30, yeah.
4:30. And then it could be specific to the volume and as you said, advance notice. And certainly I have respect for members' time too, because I know some of you have other things. But I do feel that we need sometimes to have a little more time at our meetings. Is there any other comment about that request to staff?
I was just going to say, we can take that back and have discussions with the clerk's department on whether that's a possibility, and then report back to the committee.
Thank you. I'd rather have time than have to defer applications because we don't have time. Anyway, Karina, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The only other consideration that I would put forward is that the county does need to issue public meeting notice in advance of the meeting, and so we do specify the time. So if we can get advance notice of that so that we can make sure that the appropriate information is on that material.
I'm sure these two will take my suggestion and discuss it very thoroughly. Anyway, there is a recommendation that this Committee of Adjustment meeting of April the 22nd, 2025 hereby adjourns at 6:09 p.m. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Member Wallace, seconded by Councillor Grace. All those in favor, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.